So again, how proud are you of the players and staff having steadily built momentum and then reached the playoffs at the end of the season?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for the way the season was at the start, and probably what happened at the start in terms of it took a while to get going, and embargo was coming into play, and losing players and changing a lot of what happened. So it's taken a little bit of a while to get the squad to where it was, and as you say, we built momentum as the season's gone on, and I think that was the most important thing. We had a feeling it'd be like that, at the start of the season. It has taken a little while to get going, but it's important that I think if you look at the last 25, 30 games, where in terms of the form table and where the league table would look like, we'd be really competitive, and that ultimately led to us landing in the playoffs. And I think of course it's the most important time of the year to be in them.
And then how does your experience as a player, experiencing playoff campaigns, lend itself to coming up to a new playoff campaign as a manager?
I think there's certainly a lot different, player as listen, the job is anyway. I think as a player, you worry about yourself, and you can get home from training and relax and be prepared. But as a manager, it's been in terms of what the playoffs look like. There's different time frames between games, and we've had a break since the Gateshead one, so it's getting the preparation right. The mix of rest but training properly and the right intensity, and so they're all little challenges that you've got to face, and it's making sure you're ready come the game.
We've had a strong away record as of late in the last few months. What do you put that down to?
No, I think right throughout we've been strong, and that's credit to the players. I think there's not been a certain theme to how we play or anything like that. We've become a stronger team. I think that's the main takeaway in terms of whether that's home or away.
How important is that fantastic travelling support going to be coming into this big game against Rochdale?
Of course, yeah, hugely. The numbers we took to Gateshead were unbelievable. And we'll take big numbers to Rochdale, of course, and they'll have a big crowd behind them. So, the players will always add for a good atmosphere, and the backing we get doesn't go unnoticed by myself or the players.
And then looking at Rochdale, what have you made of their season and what challenges are you expecting from them?
Yeah, I think if you look at all the games we've played recently, there's been not much in the teams, and we got a really good result up there in this league, and then it was very close again at our place where we scored a little bit late on, but really well organised, really well coached. They've done brilliantly. This season they had challenges, of course, when look at it, they were playing Saturday, Tuesday for such a long time. For them to come through that and to be in decent forms, a credit to them. So two good teams, I think, in decent form as well.
Nice one, thanks, Kevin.
Kevin, it feels like a long time. How has the last week looked for you guys?
Yeah, good. As I say, it's just been a mixture of getting the players enough rest and recovery, but also managing that with training properly, and that because you're at the stage of the season where they should be fit, but you've got players who maybe haven't been in the team that probably need topping up at the right time, and it's just getting the balance right with that.
Yeah, I suppose it's a strange one, isn't it? Because it's quite a few days between the Gateshead trip and going to Rochdale now. But I suppose, do you feel like having that extra time is a good thing, or because some might say having momentum, as you say, great form. Is that how do you feel about that?
Yeah, listen, is what it is. You've got to deal with it. You've got to get yourself right and do what you think's right for the players. And then, we've managed it. We think the right way. We wanted to do it. So yeah, listen, we'll head up there ready. We think ready to take part in a really tough game, but one we're looking forward to.
I mean, absolutely fantastic to see Southend in the playoffs as well. See, different scenario. This one, Eliminator game for replacing that semi-final against Forest Green Rovers. Has your approach differed towards this game as it would to the league games?
No, listen, we've even going Gateshead, we thought normal was good for us. I don't think that should change. There's certain rules on the playoffs that they come into play. Of course, that's what it is. And with it a one-off game, what might look like after 90 minutes, etc. That's all something you think about. But yeah, we think normal's good for us. And how we prepare and how we go about things, and for the players as well.
Yeah. It's interesting talking about playoff experience as well. I know you talked about how you use that. But does it evoke memories of your own time from those playing days as well, doing playoff competition?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, listen, there's a lot of playoffs on at the minute. So TV most night, you've got a game to watch, but it's slightly different, of course, with the National League because of the Eliminators. So just whenever we've watched them the last couple of years, that they've been really exciting games. Always in there. And a part of the product of the National League is this, and I think it does ever so well. And we're pleased to be a part of it this year. But one that we want to get to the final outcome of what we all want, which is to win them.
Yeah, obviously the teams are finished in certain ways to be in the permutations that they're in. But is there, when it comes to playoffs, is there a degree that you kind of throw that out the window? You just see this is a one-off game to this.
Yeah, I think you've got to. Yeah, this is the only game that matters. You can't look too far ahead. I think for us as a football club to end up in the playoffs this year is great achievement, but it's one that the ultimate goal is to win them. That's 2 years now in the playoffs for us, which should have been in terms of points wise and what was taken. So that when you strip that back and you go, all credit to everyone involved, and so we're grateful to be in them, but we know what we want to achieve.
If I could jump into the hypothetical, let's say you do go all the way there and you do win it. If you were to do that, where would that achievement rank for yourself personally?
No, listen, I can't go that far ahead. The only, out of respect for opponents and people we're playing Thursday, I wouldn't think that far ahead. And I don't think that professionalism within the football side of things and the camp will allow that. Everyone can dream, and absolutely they should. But our job's to focus solely on Thursday and see where that takes us.
Ahead of this Rochdale game, how's the squad availability looking for you?
Yeah, good in terms of, similar to what we have been. James Morton hasn't been able to get on the grass really at the minute. So that was the only concern going into it.
Okay, absolutely. And of course, you mentioned Rochdale as well. You won there before. How do you go about repeating that? Yeah,
listen, I think you can take stuff from the game because we've obviously played each other. But there'll be different, tweaks within that, I'm sure. And you've got to perform. At the end of the day, we can talk about what's gone on and what might happen when you cross the white line. There's things are going to happen in the game that out of our control on the sideline. And the players have been in good spirits and they're looking forward to it as well. So when they go on the pitch, I'm sure they'll be ready and looking forward to it.
Thinking back to the Gateshead game as well, so it's such an impressive defensive performance in that game as well. Of course, we had lots of into the build-up, but only having 2 shots on goal for Gateshead in that game. How vital will be repeating that consistency in that defensive performance? Will that be in this eliminator? Yeah,
I think every manager speaks to will say that as well. But I was pleased with how we looked, but different challenges. We, as you say, we kept Gateshead at arm's length for a long time. But listen, I'm sure there'll be different challenges in the game, and we just got to be ready for whatever comes.
Yeah. You've said before as well, and this great momentum that you've had, that this kind of pressure that you've had on the games into the playoffs is a privilege. I mean, would you say you're feeling? Would you say is there that kind of privilege pressure? Is that something you're feeling going into this eliminator?
I think so. Yeah. As I said, for what's gone on at the football club for the last few years, to say we've twice made the playoffs in terms of points and what we've had, then that's a brilliant achievement so far. And is there pressure? Yeah, of course, but it's something you should enjoy. You should relish. You should enjoy going out on the pitch in big games. You should always want to play in the big games. I think if you're a player and as a coach and manager, they're the ones that should excite you. Get the fans, of course, and the business end of the season, being involved in the right end of the table is the best way.
I'll ask you my monthly questions. That you described all the players in the Gateshead game as outstanding, which they absolutely were. Yeah. I mean, how close do you think your team is to playing the football you want to see from at their best form right now?
I think we'll always strive for perfection. I think there's always things we'll pick out in games we can do better. I think, but in terms of consistency of what we've looked like, it's been good recently, and I think that's important for the players' confidence. That they feel that as well, and there's still a long way to go, and it's always involved, of course. And so we want to hit them heights. We want to get to the level of performance we think we can, and I think if you can do that in the big games, and that's obviously a good thing.
Just to finish, stepping away from the Rochdale game, to be a quick turnaround for yourself with your testimonial on Friday. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, of course. Listen, I allowed myself to be too taken with that at the minute. Of course, the focus is on Thursday night, and I've got people behind the scenes doing a lot of work, which I'm very grateful for, because there is a lot to do on it, of course. But yeah, once Thursday's out of the way, we can look forward to that.
Thanks, good.
Thank you.
It's nice about Ben Goodliff being National League Player of the Month. Obviously, well-deserved clean sheets, and he's a couple of goals he's done well, hasn't he?
Yeah, yes, yeah. Listen, I think when we took Ben in, we knew the type of player he was, and as you say, with a couple of goals, he's a threat in both boxes. And his consistency of play has been very good, of course, defensively. So, yeah, delighted for him, of course.
Is it hard to treat this as a normal game, though? Is there extra buzz to it, or how?
I think there is. I think, you've got to, the build-up and everything around it, of course it is. But for us, you've got to do the same things. You've got to be consistent, for me. Whenever, how we approach the game in terms of preparation, etc. We won't build it up too much, but we'll get the right detail we think that we need into it.